This week, our newscast is devoted to a remarkable week of remembrance coupled with a renewed call to action. The majority of the events commemorating the Tulsa Race Massacre are now behind us. And in many ways, they were as historic as the terrible event in 1921 that they were created to address. Perhaps most significant, the first ever visit by a United States president to the Greenwood Neighborhood. And as Steve Shaw reports, President Biden came to deliver both empathy and action going forward.
Air Force One arrived in Tulsa just before 1 o'clock Tuesday, with President Biden quickly making his way to the Greenwood Cultural Center, where hundreds of people waited outside, hoping to at least catch a glimpse of the president. Instead, his motorcade pulled up at the back of the building, where the president entered and toured the exhibits with survivors and descendants of the Tulsa Race Massacre. Before delivering a speech, he said he wanted all black people in America to hear.
Today, we're announcing two expanded efforts targeted toward black wealth creation that will also help the entire community. The first is my administration has launched an aggressive effort to combat racial discrimination in housing. That includes everything from redlining to the cruel fact that a home owned by a black family is too often appraised at a lower value than a similar home owned by a white family.
The Tulsa Race Massacre occurred on May 31st and June 1st in 1921. Mobs of white people used a bogus sexual assault claim to attack black people. They burned 40 blocks of black-owned businesses in the affluent Greenwood district. 26 black people were killed. 10,000 were left homeless. $1.5 million in black-owned real estate was taken away. 100 years later, President Biden said he now will steer $500 billion in federal money to minority businesses over the next 5 years.
I'm going to increase the share of the dollars the federal government spends to small disadvantaged businesses, including black and brown small businesses. Right now it calls for 10%. I'm going to move that to 15% of every dollar spent will be spent for those. And let's unlock more than an incredible creativity and innovation that will come from the nation's historically black colleges and universities. No, I have a $5 billion a year program giving them the resources to invest in research centers and laboratories in high-demand fields to compete for good-paying jobs in industries of the future like cybersecurity. The reason why they don't, their students are equally able to learn as well and get the good-paying jobs that start at $90,000 and $100,000, but they don't have the money to provide and build those laboratories. So guess what? They're going to get the money to build those laboratories.
6 hours before the president's speech at Tulsa's downtown Cox Convention Center, some of the most economically successful black minds in America gathered for the Tulsa Race Massacre Centennial Commission's Economic Empowerment Day.
People have to know what it means. How do you manage debt? How do you buy a home? When do you get an advisor?
Nationwide Retirement Solutions President Eric Stevenson is an OU graduate who also sits on the university's Board of Regents.
63% of the small businesses in Black America will tell you they have a hard time getting access to capital. So what that trek is all about, we're bringing together private equity, hedge funds, banks together with small businesses and entrepreneurs.
Stevenson says there are billions and trillions of dollars in investment firms and 401k plans all over America.
9% of 9% of all the asset managers in the country are black-owned. Guess how much of the money we manage? Less than 1%.
Stevenson says the wealth gap between whites and blacks in America is the same that it was in 1960. Jewel Burks Solomon is head of Google Startups based in Atlanta.
I'm a child of generational businesses, and I saw what it looked like for those businesses to not have the capital they need. So that's what inspires me to do my work every day. And again, I'm hoping that in 100 years from now, we do not have to have this same conversation, and we really have been able to move from tragedy to triumph.
Famous actor, author, and philanthropist Hill Harper says black families should consider cryptocurrency as a way to keep up.
I would suggest to you that the current wealth gap in this country is not only unmoving, it's actually moving in the wrong way. The latest Prosperity Now study called The Road to Zero Wealth tells us that African Americans are headed to zero wealth by 2053 if something doesn't change dramatically. McKinsey just came out with another study on top of that that suggests that the pandemic actually accelerated that by 10 years. So now we're looking at 2043 to 2053. Do y'all understand what I'm saying?
Black Enterprise President and CEO Earl Butch Graves says he's skeptical of the Biden administration.
What they have already demonstrated with the whole vaccine rollout is that it was conversation about what they're going to do, not met with investment and dollars behind it. We need to see specific investment and dollars behind it, geared to the African American market. Do not use the word diverse or multicultural. Diverse is a diversion away from the word black. Use the word black. Tell me what you're going to do for black people. That's what we want to hear. That's it, specifically, and unapologetically. I'm unapologetically focused on black.
Let's get about the business of actually rebuilding roads and highways, filling the sidewalks and cracks, installing streetlights and high-speed internet, creating space to live and work and play safely. Let's ensure access to health care, clean water, clean air, nearby grocery stores, stocked with fresh vegetables and food that in fact deal with. These are all things we can do. Does anyone doubt this whole nation will be better off with these investments?
President Biden left the Greenwood Cultural Center Tuesday the way he walked in, through a back door. But people were able to see the Reverend Jesse Jackson. In Tulsa, Steve Shaw, the Oklahoma News Report.